Hey, Levi here. I don't think I've ever been like nervous to make a video before. Yeah, this might be harder than I thought, but I think it's really important to try and make a video right now, especially just because I felt like maybe I should avoid making it, and it just keeps kind of coming back. And I feel like maybe somewhere in all of what I currently feel is kind of a really important thing to hold on to our message going forward. And so I want to start with the last video that I made. Editing that was actually really challenging. Going through some of that footage and kind of seeing those moments happen over again, like it actually really, it's hard to describe what it felt like, but it like was kind of just like crushing a little bit. And I want to be careful here. I am so grateful for the entire experience going through creating an entry for this contest, the shot over giveaway, kind of everything that went along with that. But especially as I've been reflecting across the past couple days, there's been this kind of disappointment present. And I really wanted to kind of just avoid it and move on because I like focusing on the positive stuff. But as I kind of like reflected on this, I was at first disappointed with myself for how I felt. I was just like, dude, like, get over it. Like, it's not that big of a deal. You entered a contest, you got second, you didn't get this grand prize thing that you were hoping for. Just like move on. But then I was kind of realizing the reason why I kind of feel that this disappointment in a way that I don't normally experience is because I had put my heart so much behind the work, and I really did put everything behind that project, and you can't really have one without the other. You can't put your heart, put your all into things that you care about and have outcomes that don't create sometimes a certain level of disappointment. And so that's what I've been reflecting on, and I wanted to try to capture this in sort of an offhand, just conversational way to kind of make sure I documented and captured what this felt like right now. And it is kind of this pressing disappointment. And the reality is I wouldn't be feeling this strongly about it if I didn't actually put my heart behind it. And if I, didn't care, the easier option would have been to not care, to maybe just do 50% on something. And then, when things don't go the way that you hoped they would, you get to at least blame, well, I didn't go all out. But there's something really dangerous that happens when you go all in. There's something really dangerous that can happen, and that's you give yourself the opportunity to be disappointed just as much as you had put yourself into that. And now everything here is not a disappointment. There's a lot of really good things. There's a lot of really cool relationships. There's a lot of just immense encouragement from the incredible support I got from people like you that has really blown me away. And that on its own is worth it. But you see, when you set out with your art or with your creativity to achieve goals with it, to, get recognition for certain things or trying to just achieve something. In this case, I was trying to win a camera system that we could use on our upcoming projects. Yeah, sometimes that can set you up to be really disappointed. And I was kind of just thinking that through because for me, I so badly just wanted to prove something. and I'm not embarrassed to say that. Like, I really did want to prove that with little, one sec. I really did want to prove that with a little $1,000 camera, you could create a story that could win, if that makes sense. So I really just wanted to prove that with like, a little $1,000 camera and self-funded projects that you could win a contest up against people that were shooting on red, that had movies, that had all the toys. I just wanted to prove that the stories that I tell with, cheap little cameras that it could win. You know, I maybe there's an element of like personal validation I was kind of hoping for there in my craft, where I wanted to kind of just have a pinnacle moment of being like, yeah, like I finally made it as a storyteller in a sense, and I can prove it by winning a contest or something like that. So that's like, I really wanted that moment, you know? And at the same time, I knew like 100% that not winning would be okay. And I know that because I put my all in, I knew I wouldn't be able to look back and be like, well, maybe you would have won if you had like just tried a little bit harder. And so it's this weird place that I find myself in right now, where I'm like satisfied and content and grateful for everything, and yet at the same time I feel this disappointment. And I think that's the life of the maker, of the artist, of someone who sees something in their mind, brings it to life, and shares it with the world. I think anytime you put yourself in that position, you're setting yourself up to experience what I'm experiencing so heavily right now, just in varying degrees, because this is the largest kind of type of disappointment of this type that I've felt ever. And it's really interesting. And that's because it felt like so much was at stake. It felt like getting access to some of those tools could help bring a new level of attention to the stories that I'm focused on. And I wasn't even so convinced that it would make the stories themselves that much better, or the films I'm making that much more crazy. If anything, it would just raise people's expectations when they watch them. But I really did feel like it could help further everything. And so it's interesting being okay with not having that, like, because I can so visualize what that route would have taken us to. And so I'm finding myself in this position where I am totally okay that that's not the route that we're going to be on, but being able to realize all the really good things that go with the route that we actually are on. And so if you make things, if you put yourself out there and you find yourself in these moments where you are potentially disappointed, here are just some of my thoughts on how to push through that. I find even through all of this, it's like so important to remind myself what I'm grateful of. That's where I like to focus in my life. You know, I truly believe there is so much to be grateful for. And so especially when I feel different levels of disappointment, just kind of rooting the way that I feel or the way that I make my decisions on this sense of gratitude because there is so much to be thankful for. I would do that if I were you, if you were an artist and you experienced a level of disappointment, because the worst thing that can happen is preemptive disappointment preventing you from doing something where you see in the future and you go, oh, it's going to be rejected. It's going to be let down. It's going to be a disappointment. And that prevents you from making your art. That's just such a shame. Or you make something, you experience a level of disappointment, and then you decide never to make again. And that as well is a disappointment, because it's through actually making things that you allow yourself to be disappointed in that you actually have the opportunity to make something great. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make something great. I don't really like good. I don't like mediocre. I like making great things. That's what I'm kind of striving after. Yeah. I don't know how this comes across or what it's like kind of getting an insight to the way that I'm processing something like this. But I do know that I'm like proud of the fact that I just put everything into this. And I know the reason why I feel the way I do is because I did put everything in. I'm kind of at an interesting part of my journey right now where people are telling me the work is good. People like Vincent Lafray are coming up and saying, your work is really good. And yet at the same time, this like reality that I'm actually having a really rough go of making all the pieces fit together and the business all work and kind of this process of creating original stories. How can you get funding to do that? How can you sell your art to make a living out of it? All these pieces have actually been really challenging to have them all come together. And so it's really interesting to have so many people be like so incredibly positive about the work that I'm doing, and also like really struggling. Yeah, that's an interesting place to be. And I know at any point, if I need to, I could just, I would have no problem just getting a job, just doing that process. But it's just been interesting kind of reflecting on what are the next best steps forward for everything that I'm doing, and how can I do this in a sustainable and rewarding way. I don't know all the answers, and I don't know all the nuances of doing it the way that is true to me and true to the way that I experience the world, and the way that I see is the best way to kind of do all of this. But I appreciate you letting me share kind of just the real rawness of this. And I'm really grateful for having you along. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. And please remember, life is better when you make stuff. It truly is. There is such a great opportunity to experience so much joy and reward that goes along with pouring your heart entirely into something that you then make and share with others. And at a time like now, I reflect on just some of my favorite moments as a maker so far. And one of those for me was actually the premiere of that movie back there that I created about a year and a half ago, Untethered. And sometimes I bring myself back to that night, that moment where we had the theater filled with people there to see a film that I had created. And I just like remember how special that was, and how rewarding that was, and how meaningful that was. And then sometimes I remember the standing ovation at the end of the film, and just standing there on the stage after the Q&A, just like blown away. And just take myself back to moments like that sometimes to remind myself that like we are heading in a good direction, and this is all worth it because it impacts people and it brings them joy. And maybe it will push them to go do something that expands the boundaries of their own life. So yeah, remember, life's better when you make stuff.